Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Nick and Knarf, somewhat entertaining YouTube channel where we try to bring you music from the 60s, 70s, 80s and beyond. We're going to be doing our Double Dan Day today, and I'm not very excited that we're doing a couple of cuts from Gaucho. The only reason I say I'm not that...
one cut from Gaucho.
Oh, one cut from Gaucho, and the other one is from
the final Steely Dan album, Everything Must Go. So we decided to go kind of off the tracks into uncharted territory. Not uncharted. A lot of people do Gaucho, but I don't hear anybody doing reactions to Everything Must Go, which is the final Steely Dan album.
Well, that's why I'm not excited, because nobody wants to see anything end. And we know that these are, especially it's going to be their last album, and it kind of bums me out, but for 20 years anyway. So especially after those first 6 albums were just so friggin' crazy good. But Gaucho did receive in 1982 a Grammy for the best engineered album, and it did go platinum. It was number 9 in the U.S., so my gosh, what could you ask for?
Yeah, Gaucho, we haven't done a Steely Dan reaction video featuring a Gaucho song, and we got a number of requests, and I said, we haven't done, first of all, it's the first Double Dan Day we've done in months. We haven't done them in a long time, because we did so many of them for a while. We figured we'd give them a break, but it's good to return and showcase some stuff. So off of Gaucho, we are going to do Third World Man, the final track of the album. It's one of my favorites on the album. I love this album in a lot of ways, and Nick isn't that fond of it. Came out in 1980, and it took 2 years to develop it. They had like over 40 musicians that the Dan was working with to get this done, and this was their real perfection stage, and there was a lot of conflict and infighting over the production of this album. But to me, it's like a mood piece. The whole album, you got to be in a certain mood to listen to Gaucho. It's a very mellow, laid back, easygoing album, but it's got some really beautiful stuff on it as well.
And maybe that's why this isn't one of my favorite albums, because I miss the rawness at times of Steely Dan, where they're just playing like some crazy guitar licks and, or saxophone licks or some great keyboard or whatever. And this one just seems so planned, contrived, they just wanted to refine it to the point. It's kind of like watching somebody make a recipe for a good stew or something. It's like, okay, let's eat.
And don't forget, this is the last Steely Dan album with Fagan and Becker before a 20-year hiatus from each other, until they reunited to do Two Against Nature in 2000. So, what a journey and what a gap. But there's a lot of really fine songs. Everybody plays Babylon Sisters and Hey 19. That's why I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I selected Third World Man, which I really like a lot.
Frank selected both of these because, again, I've listened to them, but they're just not my favorite albums, and so he knows them much better.
Well, and we don't know how many people are going to want to listen to these 2 cuts. But again, I promised you guys when we started this that we would go into deep cuts, and Everything Must Go, that final album, it's not as popular with a lot of Steely Dan fans because it's so late in the discography. But the song I picked from that is I think the best song on the album, called Thelastmall. We'll be playing that later. But let's get into it. And before we do, first of all, thanks for joining us. And we ask you to subscribe, like, and share if you haven't. And we thank you for you.
And by the way, the word subscribe doesn't mean you're paying for anything. So don't worry about clicking that notification. It means free. Subscribe is just a term they used to say.
We don't make money off any of this stuff.
Yeah, there's no money here
except
involved,
the money
so
Nick
don't worry about
demands
it.
For me paying him to be the celebrity on our show.
That's very true. Yes.
Anyway, we want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy a really outstanding song from an album that has mixed reaction from a lot of Steely Dan fans, but it's still always got the great quality of Steely Dan. So here we go. This is Third World Man. Here we go from Gaucho. By the way, Larry Carlton plays the lead guitar in this.
Chinese playroom is a bunker filled with sand. He's become a third world man. Smoky Sunday, he's been mobilized Soon you'll throw down your disguise. We'll see behind those bright eyes. By and by, when the sidewalks are safe for the little guy. I saw the fireworks. I believed that I was dreaming. Till the neighbors came out screaming. He's the third world man.
Nice lead. Sweet.
Soon you'll throw down your disguise. We'll see behind those bright eyes. By and by, when the sidewalks are safe for the little guy. When he's crying out, I just sing that kind of rondo. Helera del terzo mondo. He's the third world man.
It's down here. It goes up.
He's the third world
What'd you think, Nikki?
I liked it. I look, it's Steely Dan. I gotta love it, but Fagan's voice just cracks me up. The more and more I listen to him, I love it, but it is so different than most other singers you hear.
I know, it's just such an iconic voice. I mean, when he started singing on Countdown to Ecstasy and took over all the singing responsibilities from the guys they had originally hired to do most of the singing. I mean, who would have thought, he wouldn't have thought that his voice would have become this well-known, this famous. But you see what I mean about this song? It's like emblematic of this whole album. It's on one of those nights when you're really in a mood and you don't want to be energized, but you want to have something kind of penetrate you, but at a quiet pace. This whole album is kind of like, even the fast stuff feels kind of slow. I mean, it's hard to describe. It continues a bit of Asia, but it's like much slowed down and much more nightclub kind of jazz almost. Yeah. And what was interesting too, we were doing some research. Larry Carlton apparently said this song was in the can from recording The Royal Scam, that they were looking for a final song for the album because Fagan and Becker were so fastidious about the production of this album. They weren't satisfied with a lot of the cuts. And so they needed one more song to finish the album. And they came up going back and getting this from the Royal Scam recordings.
Now, believe it or not, I remember it was either when Johnny Carson was hosting the Tonight Show or when Jay Leno was, but they had Mitch Miller on there, and Mitch Miller was saying that I guess Fagan must have lived upstairs or downstairs from him, and he said the one thing that drove him nuts was constantly Fagan would play the same chords all the time, and you could tell that during this, I mean, there aren't many chord changes in his piano playing, but look how he makes the flower blossom. You know, you get all these different sounds coming out of those few chords.
That's their magical capacity to arrange and layer and rework. The problem was that they frustrated a lot of the musicians who were a part of this project.
How many? 40? How many?
They said it took a year to record. They went way over budget. 42 musicians. And I guess that Fagan and Becker were very tough to work with. And I think Fagan and Becker were getting tired of each other too, because obviously it precipitated a 20-year breakup.
Yeah.
So anyway, but what did you guys think of Third World Man? What do you think of Gaucho? Where does it stand in your discography appreciation of the great Steely Dan?
Frank and I have always talked about, how do you know a group is actually great? And we say you got to have at least 5 great albums. Gaucho's their 7th. I think their first 6 were all great. Even Katy Lied. I love Katy Lied. Gaucho as well. I mean, you got to include it in there because their stuff is still so above everybody else.
Terrific.
So
anyway,
6, 7, 8 great albums.
Anyway, we're going to take a little intermission because I got to change CD for our second selection, which is off the final Steely Dan album, Everything Must Go, and we'll be right back in just a second. So please require your patience.
See you in a few.
See you in a second. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for your patience during our intermission. And we're getting ready to play for you a cut off of the 9th studio album by Steely Dan, as they were still constituted before Walter Becker's death in 2017. It is the album Everything Must Go, released in 2003. It was the second album released after the 20-year hiatus from 80 to 2000. And this album apparently did pretty well, even though I didn't hear it get much fanfare.
9th.
It ranked number 9 on the Billboard albums. Yeah. But what you hear is a lot in Donald Fagen's voice is a lot lower after, 40 years of singing over there. But it still has Donald's quality. And this is one of the jumpier tracks on the album. It's my favorite track on the album, and I think it was the single that they used to promote the album.
And I don't think I've heard more than one song on this album.
Nick may not know any of it at all.
And evidently they used another 20 studio musicians
20 more studio musicians behind Fagan Becker on this album too. But anyway, last album under the Steely Dan arc with Donald Fagan and Walter Becker, so it's a milestone there. But
let's hear it.
A terrific song, The Last Mall. So here it is from Everything Must Go. It's Steely Dan with The Last Mall. Hit the wrong one. Sorry. My mistake.
No problem.
My mistake. Here we are. Last Mall.
Attention all shoppers, it's cancellation day. Yes, the big adios is just a few hours away. It's last call to do your shopping at the last mall. You'll need the tools for survival and the listen for the blues, the sweet treats and surprises for the little buckaroos. It's last call, do your shopping at the last mall. We've got a sweetheart sunset special and all of the standard stuff. 'Cause in the morning, that gospel morning, you'll have to do it for yourself when the going gets tough. Roll your cart back up the aisle.
That was nice.
Check out girls goodbye.
It's tasty, isn't it? I love this song.
Ride the ramp to the freeway beneath the blood orange sky. Last call to do your shopping at the last mall. The last mall. We've got a sweetheart sunset special and all of the standard stuff. 'Cause in the morning, that gospel morning, you'll have to do for yourself when the going gets tough. Roll your cat back up the aisle. Kiss the checkout girls goodbye. Ride the ramp to the freeway beneath the blood orange sky. It's last call, you're shopping at the last mall. It's last call to do your shopping at the last mall.
I like the ending. It's kind of a weird ending. Watch.
It's last call to do your shopping at the last mall.
What'd you think of it, Nikki? You haven't heard? Have you heard that before?
No, I have not. I enjoyed it. I actually liked his voice. I liked his singing. It was
Yeah.
really rough and raw, and because he was, straining. I mean, but he's also in the studio where you can do 20 takes if you have to. So, it was. I liked it. I think that was Becker playing the guitar.
I think it's Becker playing
His
the- yeah,
riffs
Becker
were a
playing-
little boring. I didn't find anything really that tasty about them.
Yeah.
I did like the instrumentation in the background.
Yeah, the horns were very economic, though. There wasn't a lot of horn, but
Yeah.
just enough to give it a little background. And they still had a little bit of women vocals backing at a couple of key points.
What I want to know too is, did Becker ever sing? I mean,
Yeah,
can
did a
he
couple of
sing?
solo albums. He's got a couple of solo albums. In
I don't
fact,
think I've
on the
ever heard his
Steely Dan-
voice.
On the I didn't know it was him, because I'd never really listened to Walter Becker's solo stuff. But he has a couple of solo. But on the Steely Dan Alive in America live album, he sings a song on there, and his voice is kind of interesting. It's called "The Book of Liars." It's really a good song. He performed it, even though he
Who does he
recorded it
sound
solo.
like?
Who does he sound like? God, I don't know who he sounds like. I'll have to play it for you later. But yeah, his voice is totally different. But he never sang anything on the Steely Dan albums, as far as I know. I don't think he might have done backing vocal, but I don't think he ever did any lead. I don't think.
I
But-
think that they should buckle up this, just send this one to Jeff Bezos at Amazon and say, look what you did. Last call, no, there's no more malls because of Amazon, here you go.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting. I'm not exactly sure the genesis of the song. If it's
Yeah.
about like the apocalypse or just about the decline of the malls, just as a phenomenon. But
Yeah,
I think it's a tasty song.
Actually, it might be the latter, yeah.
What did you guys think of The Last Mall? I mean, nobody plays Everything Must Go. Everybody's always playing everything else because that's all the great stuff from the 70s. But this album has some really fine, tasty things. And again, it is the final one as Steely Dan as we know him. But anyhow, I
The
hope you
au
enjoyed.
revoir of an enormous us.
The goodbye. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed our choices today, Third World Man and The Last Mall. And please leave your comments for us. We'd love to hear what you think. And we want to thank you again for being with us for another Double Dan Day. And another thing, subscribe, like, and share as always.
Love you guys.
We love you. See you next time on Nick and Knarf. Bye-bye.
Bye.